Hello, Keith Myers here. I just wanted to do a series of videos to kind of share with you some of the work we've been doing with the Bartitsu cane or walking stick and some other areas of Bartitsu. These initial series of videos are inside because we just recently had 8 inches of snow outside. So bear with me as I deal with a relatively low ceiling. But this is kind of the introduction. Let's refer to classical Bartitsu because it's so hard to say canonical Bartitsu. I'll just say classical Bartitsu. Classical Bartitsu, there's 3 major sources for the walking stick or the cane. And this is Pierre Vinney's system, right? So the 3 sources are the 2-part article that Barton Wright himself wrote for Pearson's Magazine in 1901. Followed a year later by a short article that was written in a journal in India by a Captain Lang, who was an officer in one of the British military units in India that had come to London on leave and spent 3 months there studying at the Bartitsu Club. Wrote an article on the Bartitsu cane. And Lang, L-A-I-N-G, and again he was an army captain, so we'll refer to him as Captain Lang. The 3rd source was a book written by another man named Lang, L-A-N-G, who was a policeman from India, who wrote his book in, I think, 1921. He was a policeman in India that, again, on leave, went home to England and spent some time in Hove, England, studying with a gentleman named Percy Hurst, who had been a student at the Bartitsu Academy, had left and was running his own school in Hove, essentially teaching Bartitsu, even though he didn't use that name. And he taught this policeman some Vinny cane, which then he went back and added some things to it. It's not quite clear what he added and what was original. And then he was teaching it to the different police units in India, wrote this book about it. It went on. They used it as a foundation for stick fighting taught in Israel for a while, and this has been really the source of then the continuation of the Vinny system through the years that other people have kind of drawn upon. And again, he was a policeman, also Lang, but L-A-N-G, and I'll just refer to him as Constable Lang because that's easier to say than Policeman Lang. So we've got Captain Lang, Constable Lang, and we got Barton Wright's own articles, right? And these lay out a system of Bartitsu for the cane that is essentially kind of the give and take, that don't flesh out as much the infighting and how the cane was applied in like self-defense situations, which would have drawn heavily on the jujitsu that they were also teaching, that was part of Bartitsu, that they were also teaching at the academy. So that gives lots of leeways to look at ways to go from the hitting, striking, blocking into tying up, infighting, takedowns with the cane, that kind of thing, which kind of, again, the system can kind of grow from there. But okay, a lot of this you can look up, read about. I'm not going to stand here and give you a lecture. I hate those people that do a 10-minute video and they spend 8 minutes talking and 2 minutes showing you something. So I will try not to do that. So, the basics then. The basic positions are guards. And it's interesting, when we say guard, it can both be a ready position or the guard can be the blocking position, but they're each called a guard. And most of the terminology comes from Constable Lang's book, and we also see some of it in Barton Wright's article. But the basic position is called the front guard, which we're here. Now, Barton Wright tells us in an article that the major feature of Vinny's system is that compared to the prior forms of classical French cane and compared to British single stick, both of which were based on saber work, in Vinny's system, the idea was you have to protect your hand from a strike. You have no guard on here. There's no wicker basket like a single stick. There's no guard like on a saber. If I'm holding my point up and I'm blocking, then it's very easy for something to glance down and hit my hand. Therefore, we always hold the point down. So if I'm blocking something, if it's going to glance off, I want it to glance downward, not into my hand. So the positions are such that every block is done tip down, never tip up, because I don't want something to be able to slide into my hand. So a heavy feature of NA's system was based on the hanging guard, right? From classical swordsmanship, this is a hanging guard. We call this the front guard in the Bartitsu cane. So it's here, right? Like so. Now, in Constable Lang's book, he has it way the hell up here like this. In Barton Wright's Pearson articles, it's much more relaxed. His hand is, roughly at his temple level. The stick is kind of right on this, the tip is right on the center line. Remember, this is using a knobbed cane, so it's heavier at one end, and it's the heavy end we want forward, right? Because we're going to set that in motion. So front guard is this way. Front guard, nice squared position. This hand can be out, but it's essentially back here, so it doesn't get hit, and so it's ready to reach out and grab to use it as a check hand as necessary. Front guard, okay? Now if I take a step back, that becomes the rear guard. All I did was move from front leg forward. Now this leg is to the rear, so it's a rear guard. This arm is either tucked back to protect the ribs, or they'll often stick it forward like this to kind of bait the guy to kind of strike at the hand, and when the guy takes the bait and strikes at your hand, then you move and you respond. But this is the rear guard. Rear guard. Okay? Now, so those are the two essential ready position guards, you might say. Kind of a subsystem is you can hold the stick or the cane with two hands. So if I'm back here in the rear guard, I can do a two-handed version of the rear guard holding it high. All I've done is gone from here, grabbed hold, so now I'm holding it with both hands. It's just here. And that allows me, I can use now either hand to strike with, so it's a lot more unpredictable. There's a lot you can do from this two-handed guard. And then if I can hold it high, I can also drop it down and hold it low. And this is what we're more infighting. We'll see later the bayonet thrust is done from this position. And when I'm moving in, there's a lot of things I can do from this kind of a position that's important. So this two-handed rear guard, low versus high. And obviously I can do it on either side. That's another thing in Barton Wright's article, and in Captain Lang's article, he points out as a key point, is that this is an ambidextrous system. Anything I can do with my right hand, I should switch and be able to do with my left hand. It's an ambidextrous system. Where this really shines is if I'm using a two-handed guard like this. If I'm here, right, and then I can suddenly release, and then I'm in a front guard in my left hand. And I'm striking with my left hand instead of my right. It can be very confusing for an opponent, right, when I can switch like that. So practice to make it ambidextrous, okay? Now, the blocking positions then. The first one that you see is called the bodyguard. I'm protecting this side, something coming at me from here. And from the front guard, I simply drop the tip, and I oppose something coming on that angle. I catch it on my stick. That's the bodyguard. It's protecting my body. It can be a little high if it's up here. It can be low, but it's this region, right? Likewise, again, if I show it from here, I'm like this. Something's coming from this region, and I stop it. And remember, I've got this weight down here, and this is a medium weight cane. It's not the thin, flimsy little thing they use in sport la cane. There's some substance to this cane, so it can absorb that impact. Bam! Right? Then the other one is the other side, which is the flank guard. This is considered body, this is considered flank. And so again, I can stop high, I can defend low. I don't want to go any lower than what would be a strike to my side, because I don't want to lean over and reach. I'm not going to block something coming at my legs if I can help it, okay? Which we'll do in a minute. So again, we've got body, flank. Bodyguard, flank guard. And then of course something coming down at me, straight down, is the head guard. Notice how it comes up, and I've got to almost elbow extended because I want to stop something. High. I don't want to do it here because something can still come across the top and hit me. So it's up like this. And this guard is not static, as in I freeze it right here, because when something hits, I want it to taper off that way, right? Again, I don't want it to slide down in my hand, so typically I would block as I'm moving and then go into something else. But that's the head guard. So from here, head guard. Pop. Okay? So those are actually blocks, right? I'm blocking this way. I'm blocking this way. I'm blocking this way. Now another one is the reverse guard. Like, let's say something's coming at this angle. It's coming like this. That's a pretty steep angle to try to catch with this guard, right? Because I have to raise it too high, and it's a weird angle to catch from this flank guard position. And it's not really appropriate for a head guard because, again, I'd have to do this, and it'd slide down into my hand. So in that case, something coming this way, we use the reverse guard, where from here, I bring my hand in, and I catch it here. So again, if it's going to glance down, it'll glance down that way and not into my hand. So I'm here, reverse guard, also sometimes called cross guard. I just come back. See, I'm still crossing the center, I'm still defending my head, I still got to hold it high. I'm here, cross guard. Cross guard or reverse guard, and I'm ready to hit. Okay? Now, for the hand guard is not really a guard, even though they list it that way. It's more of an evasion. Think of it as a hand defense, even though they say hand guard in the manual. But this is simply, I can even bait it. I can actually kind of put my stick further forward than usual, like this, to let the guy think that my hand is vulnerable, because I want him to take a strike at my hand, and when he does, I yank it back. And this hand has to come back too, right? I don't want to yank this back and leave this hand out here to get hit. So all I'm doing is I'm yanking up and back so that my hand is past my head and my body's leaning back. So I'm here, the guy's taking a shot at my hand, I'm back, and then I'm going to hit him, right? I'm back. I'm here, he's taking a shot at my hand, back. Okay, that's the hand guard. Now, the leg guard, again, I don't want to reach down here and try to block. So when he's striking at my leg, I slip the leg. This, you could say, is like a slip with the hand. A slip with the leg is I just get it out of the way. Right? Something's coming at my leg, I get out of the way. And see, I lean my weight back, and this foot comes even with this one. I don't need to go this. That's just wasted motion. All I need to do is come that far. So I'm here, the guy's striking at my lead leg, I slip. I slip. And if I have time and I need to, I can take a little step with this leg first, and I slip. Because then I'm coming forward. I slip, I come forward. Right? Slip the leg, come forward. Okay? So that's your essential guards. We got the front guard, the rear guard. Two-handed rear guard high, two-handed rear guard low. Then I've got the body guard, flank guard, head guard, hand guard, leg, and then the reverse or cross guard. Okay? Those are all the defensive positions. And in Barton Wright's article, he shows if something's coming to thrust here and my hand is way out here, I really don't have time to drop and come across. This is kind of from fencing, it's called a septime envelope, but it's really just a low version of the cross guard. Something's coming through here like a thrust, and I want to catch it. I can pivot, and I can beat it this way. Right? Again, it's just the cross guard done low, and then strike. So that's like the one you wouldn't use very often, but it's there in Barton Wright's article. Okay? So those are the essentials. Now, to add to this essential, you might consider warm-up basic exercises, and this comes directly from Constable Lang's book. He talks about holding the guard, then I got to watch for my ceiling, but do circling. So I'm circling on the vertical plane this way, and then I want to switch it and circle upward. So I'm circling downward, circling upward. Same way on the outside line, circling downward, circling upward. Okay, and then on the horizontal line, my arm above my head, I circle on backhand line this way, or I circle this way. So those are to practice getting wrist strength and flexibility and being able to move this heavy stick basic exercises you have to practice with both hands, okay? Now, so that brings us, well, I should say vertical, vertical, horizontal. This is not in Lang's book, but correlation, I mean, it just follows from there. If I can do it on a horizontal plane, I can do it figure eight, right? So I've got to figure eight this way. What you don't want to do is come like this. I want to come with this backhand motion, forehand motion. And see, when I get it going, I just let the weight of the tip carry it through. So I got a downward figure eight. And again, this way to this way, downward figure eight. Like so. And then of course, if I can go downward, I can go upward. Upward. Now it's important to practice this because this is how we're going to learn how to do one of the major cuts, which is the head cut, and the other cut, the uppercut. And so you can see this arc is where that head cut comes from. It comes across like this. So you can see this downward figure eight. That's the cut, right? This part of the figure eight, that's the head cut. Boom, boom, right? The upward figure eight, well, I should say, let me point out to this side, you don't really see in the sources, but if I can do a head cut on the backhand line, I can do a head cut on the forehand line. This is how I return to guard. That's another important reason to do this figure eight, right? Teaches me to strike, and whatever I'm doing, boom, it brings me back to guard. But this motion can also be a head cut over the top from this side. So that's where that comes from. Now the upward figure eight is like this, and it's this side that gives us the uppercut, which we'll cover when we cover strikes, uppercut, right? Upward, 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 uppercut. Now technically I could do an uppercut from this side, but we don't use that very often. It might be that I've done something and I cut up this way to come under his elbow or something. But so it's there, but it's not as major a cut. So practice the circles this way, this way, this way, this way, across the top this way, figure eights downward, figure eights upward. Now, in the realm of guards, then there's another guard we have to mention, the circling guard, okay? In Constable Lang's book, the circling guard is done on the inside, and it's the upward motion. This is his circling guard. So rather than just standing statically, I could be moving like this as this guy's in front of me. And this is kind of like milling in boxing, where I don't just stand statically, I'm kind of in motion to make my moves flow better and to make them less predictable, which hand's going to strike. This is the same thing, the circular guard that allows me to strike off at different angles or go into a block, right? And he makes the comment that everything we just talked about and all the drills we're going to do later from here should also practice them from this circling guard this way. From this circling guard, I should be able to just be here and block and hit. Circling guard, block and hit. Circling guard, block and hit. Okay? Barton Wright also talks about the circling guard in his articles, but when he talks about it, he's doing it from straight overhead. He's doing, again, it's a backhand, and it's this way. So instead of on the vertical line, it's a horizontal line. He does a circling guard, and for the same reason. And then from here, I can block and hit. Boom, 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 block and hit. So work them both, circle and guard, and just work them into your different drills. But okay, I think that's enough for the first installment or lesson 1.